Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm still having a blast playing the Axe Cygnus firmware, and I got caught up in a model I didn't intend on, but it's really funny how us guitar players will seek out the big names, the Mesa, the Marshall, the Fender, etc., and yet some of the custom-made amps might actually be more desirable because some of the quirks of the old models have been removed, carefully removed by Cliff Chase, who's the mastermind behind the Axe FX. So for example, an old Plexi, if you've never turned one of those things on and been in the same room as that thing spitting back at you, it's a gnarly sound. It's hard to control. It is a living, breathing creature, so to speak. And the notes can sound kind of hairy and fuzzy and maybe not as tight as some of us are used to with these amp modelers or speaker monitors. Long story short, Cliff has taken some time to perfect that sound and make it pretty much the ultimate Plexi sound. So the amp I'm talking about specifically is the FAS Crunch, FAS Fractal Audio Systems, shocker. The Crunch model here, it ranges from a beautiful, slightly broken up clean all the way to a fully saturated, big Plexi sound like you would expect. So here it is with the gain on 9. So pretty gnarly sounding, but let's check this out. I'm going to adjust the input trim a little bit. I'm going to back that down quite a bit, actually, to like 0.250, something like that. And now listen what that does. Really nice, beautiful sounding guitar sound. I like it because it's got a lot of sustain, and that can be a hard thing to control and get with the amp modeling stuff sometimes. At least it's been elusive for me in many ways. So this is a model that it's surprising. It's just surprisingly fun to play, surprisingly dynamic. Why is nobody talking about the FAS Crunch? This is crazy to me. In any case, let's see what else it can do by messing around with that input trim. I'm going to crank that up just a little bit more. And let's see if we can get a more in between, kind of like bold as love type of a sound here. Totally. I mean, it nails it. And this is a sound that can work really well in a mix. Let's check out what that sounds like now. So it works really well for leads, it works really well for cleans and in-betweens. I recommend you give it a try, and here's a couple tips for dialing this thing in. So obviously I showed you the input trim and how big that can impact. It can just make a huge impact on your sound, whether it's going to be gritty or tight and clean or wherever you want it. Some other things, you want to keep the bass somewhat low on an amp like this. I find to, right around 3 to 4 is a good place for me and my speakers, my guitar. Further down, Keeping the presence at the default works really well for me. I pushed the treble up to about 6.5. The bright switch is off. I oftentimes will do this in my high gain presets. And even a lot of my cleans, I just find that the bright can be too much for my guitar. I have a very bright sounding instrument, alder body, burl maple top. These single coil pickups, they can get unruly with that bright switch. You could always turn that down in the advanced tab, or I'm sorry, the ideal tab. You can just narrow that bright cap down. It defaults at 1,000 for this one. But don't be afraid to mess with these things and see what it does for you. Another way you can get rid of that ice picky stuff if it's coming out on your guitar is to mess with the high treble. So the high treble is in the ideal tab as well. We just pull that down a little bit and you can get a big result. The speaker I'm using this with is one that I've been using quite a bit recently. It's Factory 2 540, which is the 412 Brit 70s Greenback 313C. I love this thing. It's just a really thick sounding cabinet, thick in all the right ways. It doesn't muddy up or anything like that, but when you're playing it on its own, it sounds big and full, and somehow it just manages to fit nicely in a mix as well, in my opinion. Other things that I like to combine with this, the reverb is a personal choice, as is everything, but for me, I like this South Church. It's a big reverb, 2.4 seconds. And a little bit of pre-delay, really helps to separate that washy sound from what you're actually playing. I'll sometimes use the default setting and I'll push it up all the way to about 100 milliseconds sometimes to really get that separation and have it kick in almost like a delay effect afterwards. It's really fun to play with. I keep that somewhat low, about 14.6%. With my delay, I love running a dual delay. You get that ping pong thing starting to happen. And my typical go-to settings is it's not song dependent all the time. I'll usually start with 250 milliseconds on one side, 500 milliseconds on the other. I generally keep the longer delay a little bit more on the repeats. And then on the shorter delay, I dial that back a little bit. In this particular example, I've got 25% for the feedback on the 500 millisecond delay. And I've only got 12.7% feedback for the 250 millisecond delay. Gives me a nice big sound. That's really about it. Not too much else to say about it. One thing you might consider trying is swapping out some of the speaker impedance curves. I left it at the default, which is the 412 Brit TV cab. And I got some good results with the 5153, the Friedman, and the Greenback. They all play really nicely, but for me, with this particular amp, this is what I came to. Your results may vary. Hope you guys get in here, dig around a little bit, twist some knobs, have some fun, and I hope you get as much joy out of this amp model as I have. If you have any questions, or if you just want to rant about something, or let me know about something that I've been missing, feel free to comment below, and I'm looking forward to talking to you and seeing you next time. Thanks for being here.